Welcome to the Transform Your Mind, Transform Your Life radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Coach Myrna Young. As we start 2019, I wanted to spend some time on how to build wealth through the vehicle of real estate investments. As you know, I am a realtor, an investor, a property manager, and a life coach. So I have a very high-level overview of how to build wealth through homeownership or as a real estate investor. So this month, I will be interviewing experts in the field of real estate investments as I help you to get into the space of building wealth as we start 2019. As you know, wealth is the vehicle that you need for any successful venture in your life, whether it's to, give your kids a better life, whether it's to have freedom, whether it is to retire, whatever you need to do, you need money, unfortunately, to do it with. So building wealth through real estate investments is what we're going to be focusing on for the next 4 episodes. So what I will be doing is bringing you experts who have made millions through real estate investments and who will share the details on how they did it. So to be sure to subscribe to your iTunes, your Google Play, your Stitcher, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen, make sure you subscribe so you're not missing any episodes. Today, I have an interview with Mike Wolf. I interviewed Mike Wolf back in 2017, and I thought it would be a great resource as we enter into this series to, to circle back and to, have our new listeners hear from Mike. So Mike has made his wealth by offering turnkey services to investors in the Atlanta area. His system allows his investors to sit back and collect passive income while living their freedom lifestyle. So, without much more ado, here is Mike Wolf. Now, let me tell you a bit more about Mr. Mike Wolf. Mike has been a real estate investor for over 28 years. Over the years, he's gone from being a workaholic who would put in 15-hour days, 7 days a week, to being someone who works smarter, not harder. He regularly travels the globe doing humanitarian projects and seeking sun and sand while living off the passive income that he has created through real estate. Mike's company sells turnkey properties in and around Atlanta to investors around the globe. He helps his clients create truly passive income where they get all the benefits of owning real estate. Welcome again, Mike. As a realtor and a beginning investor, I'm going to learn as much from you today as our audience. So welcome again.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's dive right in. I normally like to start off my show with having my guests tell my audience their journey from, in your case, from working 15 hours, 7 days per week, a workaholic, to living passively off your income and traveling the world. So take us on that journey, Mike, if you don't mind.
Well, absolutely. Back in the days, I listened to my parents. I listened to what society told me, and they always said, go get an education, work hard, and good things will happen. And so I did that. I got my good education. I worked hard to the point where I was a workaholic, and I've always been really passionate about real estate. I've always loved it. But there was one day it was kind of like a turning point. Like everything was suddenly going wrong, and It seemed like every house had some issues with it. Every tenant was complaining about something. And I just realized that, hey, if I want to keep scaling my business, if I wanted to get more properties and get to the next level through real estate, I had to make some changes because there's no way I could put any more hours than I already was. And it was needing my attention. So basically, one of the big turning points, I'm originally from Calgary, Canada, and I was only investing in Canada back at the beginning of my career. But I had a friend of mine move to Las Vegas, and when I went to Vegas to visit him, I have this addiction. It's not what most people have when they go to Vegas. It's not gambling. It's not drinking. It's actually this addiction to go look at real estate. And so when I went to Vegas, I noticed that back in those days, the prices kept going up and up and up and up and up. And so I started to buy some properties there. I had no intention of investing there originally, but I ended up doing it. And it was kind of at that point I was forced now start building a team because I couldn't be in two places at the same time. I couldn't go collect my rent in Calgary and my rent in Las Vegas at the end of the month. So I reluctantly hired a property manager. And at first, what I find most entrepreneurs do is we go through if we survive long enough, we go through three phases. The first phase is where we do everything ourselves, usually because we don't think anybody else can do what we do as well as we do it. And so it's kind of like for an entrepreneur, our business is like birthing a baby, and you don't trust just anybody with your baby. I got to the second phase where I had no choice. I had to get somebody else to help me, so I reluctantly hired a property manager. But phase two is what I call the micromanager phase, where I needed to know every little thing that was going on. And so I basically told them, if anything, if the tenant's late, if something breaks, no matter what it is, I need to know every little thing that was going on. And so I know probably some people listening can relate to this. So anyway, I remember there was 1 week where my property manager called me twice with the same issue. And it was like a broken fridge. Two of my properties had a fridge that wasn't working. And in neither case did I tell the property manager, hey, you know what, I don't think the tenants need a fridge. I realized they gave the exact same answer. It's like, let's see what it costs to fix it. And if it's over a certain amount, then we'll replace it. So when he called me the second time, it was because he had to. He already knew what I was going to say. He knew the answer. And then I started to think, well, you know what? If I gave him the same answer both times, maybe I could systemize it. And instead of him having to call me, I can give him the freedom to follow our procedures, which is to find out what it costs to fix it. And if it's more than X number of dollars, let's just replace it. And kind of the start of getting to phase three, where you put the right person on your team, you trust them, and they do a good job for you. What I realized, so I was collecting my rent in Canada. He was collecting my money in Vegas. And what I found is when I gave him the freedom to do what he's good at, he was actually collecting more rent than me. And it was taking up none of my time. And I started to realize that, if I could build a whole team like that, where I put the right people in the right position, gave them certain systems so that they're following, my procedures and something that made me feel comfortable to let them do their thing, I would get my time back. And so that was kind of the start of the transition that now has led to, typical work day for me these days is literally I wake up, I answer some emails, I make a few phone calls. When Myrna asks me to do a radio interview, I do that, and then I'm done for the day. And so, and then sometimes at night I'll answer a few emails. So that's my work day, and that's all because I got to phase three, where you start to let people. If you put the right people in the right positions, you realize that they're actually better than you at what they do. And so I realized that my property manager was much better at property management than I was. Now I'm not getting calls at 2 a.m. from tenants, and now it allowed me to scale to get to the next level where I could get more properties and take up less of my time. And so it was a transition. I don't want you to think I went from 15 hours to like 2 hours overnight. But as I kept adding more and more people to the team, putting better systems in place, letting people do what they're good at, not only was I happier, but my teams are much happier too, because they get to, they don't feel like they're being babysat, and they're trusted, and they get to make decisions which they're very capable of making because that's what they do for a living. So that's how it all kind of transpired, kind of out of necessity, because I kind of hit that brick wall where it's like if I would have tried to get any more properties, I would have probably pulled all my hair out. So
yeah, well, actually, that's a good story. Yeah, and I can basically see there's a couple of points that I want to comment on. You're right. In the first stage is like your baby. It can be like a mother. First of all, she doesn't trust anybody with her baby. But second of all, babysitting is expensive, so
That's
she's
right.
going to try to do. She's going to try to do as much as she can. So the first stage, you're not making a lot of money, so you don't want to have to pay people, and you try to do it. But you're very right. It's like in any business. I've been in the entrepreneur space for a long time, and everybody will tell you if you're an entrepreneur and you're working by yourself, there's no way that you can scale to the next level. You have to put a team together. You have to, have certain skill sets. Like you're saying that, the property managers could do a much better job than you because that's their skill set. So it's the same, this transcends just real estate. And and systems. Everybody's always talking about systems, and they use the McDonald's as a model for that system. Like you create a system once, and 16-year-olds knows how to do burgers and ask you if you need fries with that or something like that. So a system is very good, and you had to do it because you're in two different countries, but normally, people always, pushing through that barrier is so hard. And after you've pushed through that barrier, you couldn't believe how, why you were in the barrier in the first place. Because once your head pushes through and you're in that space of freedom, you can't understand life any other way. So that's awesome. Now you jumped in your story to having properties in Calgary and in Vegas. But you kind of, how did you become to have properties in Vegas and Calgary? Spend a few minutes to tell us how you came from, wanting to be a lawyer to investing in your first couple of properties.
Yeah, well, basically, I'm very blessed and I'm very grateful that I've made some big mistakes in my life that actually turned out to be really good mistakes. Like buying that first property was absolutely 100% because my mortgage broker called me up and said that you can get another mortgage, and that wasn't even on my radar to get another property. Right. So,
so that's how I got my today. By the way, I've never had that call.
Yeah, I wish I would get that every day. Trust me, I never hear from mortgage brokers or banks anymore. They don't like me.
Yeah,
but anyway,
right.
That's
exactly.
You get to a certain number of properties, and nobody wants to give you more money. But anyway, that's another story for another day. So so I mean, the first property was totally a mistake. The next properties after that were because I thought I became a know-it-all. I knew everything about real estate, so I don't need to go back to law school. I'm not going to go back to the phone company. I kind of burnt all those bridges, which actually turned out to be a pretty good thing because I couldn't really.
You can't go back.
Yeah, and I was too proud to tell my parents, you're right, I wasn't cut out for real estate. I'm going back to school. So that wasn't going to happen. So, but what did happen, a transition that did happen, is I went from being a know-it-all, thinking I knew everything, to after I made a few mistakes and was pretty much starting to run out of money, even though I had made sizable amounts of money on the first couple of deals. When I started to run out of money, then I became a lot more humble, and I started to find other people in the same space that were successfully doing real estate. And instead of being a know-it-all, I went, asked some questions, and basically found somebody to do a joint venture with. And I basically still had enough money to do another deal. So I went to them and said, hey, if you want to do a deal with me, I'll put up the money. I want to watch how you do this. I want you to mentor me and teach me, and we'll split the profits. And so I went from being a know-it-all to what I today call a learn-it-all. And, I mean, you'll quite often, even to this day, I've been doing real estate 28 years. I still go to seminars. I still am open to seeing how other people run their businesses and how they make their money. And I'm always looking to get, to be more efficient, to get to that, be smarter, be a better marketer, be, everything. And so I do a lot of personal development and work on myself. And, back in the early days, I thought I was too good for all that. And the most successful people I know are all lifelong learners. They're always trying to strive to be better, get to that next level, and they never stop. And so, it makes it sound like it was a very short transition. I just did some deals and I became rich and started traveling the world. There were a lot of ups and downs along the way. Trust me. So,
well, it
as
always
I'm sure you can
happens that
imagine.
way. People, one of my favorite sayings is, Kevin Hart is blown up in the last couple of years, making $85 million a year, being the highest entertainer. And, everybody would say, hey, he's an overnight success. But, there's a saying that says his overnight success
Right.
took him 19 years. So
That's
people
right,
only
exactly.
see
And
you when
I'm a 28-year.
What?
I'm a 20-year overnight. Yeah, people don't see all your years of struggle and all the mistakes you made.
No, but
back and pull yourself back up.
It always takes time, and that makes me, me as an individual person. I no longer go for the quick fixes and stuff like that. I know that you've got to build. I know that it's going to take some time. I know that it's going to be a learning curve. And like you, when I walk in the morning, I have a podcast in my ear. I'm reading books and whatever. I have information overload because that's all I do.
Yeah, I know the
learn.
feeling. That's right, and that's great. And I do the same thing.
Information overload, right? So yes, you definitely
Absolutely.
have to be learning and growing. Right. Awesome. All right. So I mentioned that I'm a realtor, beginning investor. So I'm at the early stages, where you were at 28 years ago. But let's say that, someone is listening right now and they want to quit their job and you go into real estate full time because obviously they can make much more money in real estate than they can working, and that's a true statement. How would they start, or how would you suggest that they start?
Yeah, well, I'd say if I could go back 28 years and talk to myself, I would, the first thing I would ask myself is, do I want to have my money work for me and, take advantage of the benefits of investing in real estate, or do I want that to actually be my career, where every day I'm waking up and that's my job? I'm out looking for deals. I'm looking for, buyers and sellers, trying to raise money. Do I want this to be my career, or do I want this to create passive income where I do something once, I buy a property once, and it pays me forever? And there's no right or wrong. There's people like myself that when I first started, I actually liked the grind. I actually did not, until a certain point, I didn't even mind those 15-hour days. But once my daughter was born, all of a sudden, there were days where I'd be leaving the home, it would still be dark out. I'd come home, it would be dark out, and I'd go the whole day without seeing my daughter. And so you've got to make sure that you're ready for that kind of commitment, because you can't, if you're going to treat it as a career, you don't dabble in it. If you dabble in it and try and mix it part-time and with your job, I don't see very many people successful with that. So that's number one, is figure out what type of investor do you want to be. Do you want to be creating passive income, or do you want to get out of your job and make this your career? So, and make sure you have a passion for it. Don't get into it just because you see those shows on TV that make it look really easy, flipping this, flipping that, and it looks like you can just every day wake up, find a property, flip it, make a couple $100,000 and call it a day, because it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. So number one is figure out what kind of investor you are. Then the second thing that I would do is figure out what your resources are, whichever side of that equation you're on, whether you're the passive investor or whether you're an active investor. Figure out what your resources are. By resources, I mean cash. How much cash do you have available? How much time do you have? How much education do you have? Do you know what you're doing, or are you just winging it? When I first started, I got really, really lucky on that first deal. Otherwise, there would have never been a second deal. It's the only reason that I'm in real estate now is because I got really, really lucky. And then I had some humbling experiences that made me go get educated, get a mentor, get somebody to help me. So don't go winging it. If you don't know what you're doing, make sure you have a mentor or somebody doing it with you or for you. But figure out what your resources are. And you mentioned earlier that article in Forbes about adding value to the marketplace, and that's how you create wealth. Well, figure out, what do you add to the marketplace? If you were to go do a joint venture with somebody, what are you bringing to the table? Are you bringing money? Are you bringing the ability to qualify for a mortgage? Are you bringing education? Do you have access to good deals? Figure out what you're adding, and then figure out what you're lacking. And then find JV partners, find other people that have the pieces that you're lacking. So if you have a lot of spare time and no money, there's a lot of people out there with money. You can't create more hours. You can always earn more money. You can't create more hours. So if you have a lot of spare time, that's very valuable to somebody like myself, who actually I have a lot of spare time now, but that's because I purposely chose that I don't want to be full-time, working the grind anymore. I want to be enjoying time with my grandson and my daughter, doing a lot of volunteer work and humanitarian things. I don't want to be door knocking looking for good deals anymore. So find somebody who's got some money. If you find a great deal, the money is going to follow. If on the other hand you have lots of money, but you don't know how to find a deal, there's people with lots of good deals that don't have any cash that can't take down those deals. So find out what you add to the marketplace and find people that fill in the gaps, the things that you're missing. And if you start off on that track, asking yourself those two questions, then you're going to have a pretty realistic chance of succeeding and going forward. And a lot of people kind of get into it with these, really big dreams because they go to some seminar where they make it sound really easy and they're trying to sell you, some high-end expensive coaching program, and they fill your mind with all these things that you can achieve. And probably about 2% of people that go to those seminars ever end up even earning their money back that they spent on the seminars, and on the training. So just be really realistic and careful when you get out there, and then be prepared. If you decide you're going to be a working type of investor where this is going to be your career, make sure that you're prepared to work a lot of hours and you're going to pay your dues up front so that later on you won't have to work as hard.
Wow, you said so much in that little one. You were like talking
to
me.
I get excited. I know. I get excited.
Well, when I say much, I don't mean volume, but I mean a quality. You were talking to me. It's like, sometimes you go to church and they're going to say the pastor is going to meet you at your point of need.
Right, exactly.
So it's almost like you were a preacher there for a minute. But, I learned a lot from what you said, and I'm glad that you added something that I never even thought of. How are you going to add value? Most people, you're right, they can start off like you. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of skill to go buy a property, get a mortgage, and rent it out, right? And that's what 99% of investors do. It doesn't take a lot. But I was one of those people that just did a real estate seminar, a class. I didn't spend the $20,000, but basically that's what they charge to teach people how to become investors. And you're very right. 2% of those people get out of there with all that knowledge but don't know how to apply it, right? I haven't even used any of the information that I learned from there yet because, you come out of there and you realize that, in order to become an investor, it's not just buying the property. Yeah, you're right. You have to have resources. And if you can't go and get the resources to just go to the bank and buy a property, then you've got to do some other things. And I love what you just said, is that whatever you don't have, you can find people to connect to. I love that, because if you don't have a lot of money, right, but you've got time, you can work for people that, you can join ventures with people that, so that was valuable information, whether it's resources, cash, time, education. You've got the education. Now, you've spent $20,000 on learning this business. You've got the education, but you don't got the cash and you don't got the time.
and also be careful where you get your education from, because a lot of these courses, these people are professional marketers, and they're really good at getting you excited and getting you to cut a check for $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 sometimes. Yep. And a lot of these people never have any. A lot of the people who go to take these seminars, they don't have any success, because a lot of times the people teaching, the stuff that they're teaching worked years and years ago, and in today's environment it doesn't work, or sometimes it never worked. It just sounds really exciting, or they're trying to sell you the latest software thing, which is going to change your life. And I see so many people come to me after they've invested a lot of money in their education, and their education is pretty much worthless. So make sure you do your homework, and we live in the best time to research things. Most people don't even go on Google to see if what the reputation is of these quote unquote gurus that are selling stuff, and they just get excited in the hype, and so just be careful where you get your education from, and also who you team up with. Make sure that the people a lot of times, especially once you get successful, a lot of people will want to ride on your coattails. So you have to be careful that the people who are bringing certain resources actually have those the things that they say they've got. So, but once you get these things all kind of dialed in, then stuff becomes pretty easy, because you have people that make up for your shortfalls, and vice versa, where you're adding value to them and they're adding value back to you. Yeah.
Again, very good information, because, I run into a lot of professional marketers. Oh, my gosh, all I got to do is open up my email.
Yeah, exactly.
So lots of professional marketers. Everybody's trying to get your money. My goodness. Usually they know what they're talking about. I haven't actually run into anyone that don't know what they're talking about, but they are professional marketers. I love that term. I'm gonna use that because that's what they know how to do. They know how to spin it in a way that you spend $20,000. And I've come up with, I go to these seminars, and I know that that's the average cost now. You're talking about 50, 100,000. I haven't gone any of those. But I've gone to places where somebody will say, hey, you know what, I make $1 million a day on eBay. Let me charge you $20,000 so that you can know how to do the same thing. And you go on and you find out that, hey, you just spent $20,000, but you're not making no $1 million. You're not even making $2,000.
Exactly.
But they spin it in such a way because they're successful. And that, I think, is the in thing now, where everybody is saying, okay, this is how I did it. Now let me show you how you can do it as well. And it doesn't equal. It doesn't equal. There's so many facets to it in order to become successful. So
Absolutely,
very good information here. So to summarize, basically, you got to find out what Mike is saying. You've got to find out what your value is, right? If you got the education, did you spend $20,000, $50,000, and you're educated, or you've been in the business for a while and you know what to do, but you don't have the cash, right? Or you've got the time, you're self-employed, and you've got the time. So any of those are resources, and people always think that resources is cash, or credit score, right? But sometimes, it can be other things. Anything that you can trade, it's called is called a resource. So that was good information for me as well. So thank you for that. All right.
You're welcome.
Let's take our first break, and we'll be right back with more of this very interesting and insightful conversation with Mike. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Are you one of the millions of uninsured Americans who currently suffer from type 1 diabetes and is struggling month to month to afford your insulin because of the ongoing prices? Then ReferralRx.com is your solution. Through our free specialty insulin referral program, we can help our customers as well as pet owners save 40 to 50% off of their insulin retail. Guaranteed. So stop the struggle and visit www.referralrx.com or call us direct at 888-381-6675 to find out how we can save you thousands of dollars off of your insulin without draining your pockets like the big chain pharmacies do.
Are you looking for a tutor for next year's math class? Your wait is over. Frederick Douglass Tutoring Online Services is here to serve you. Your tutor is a college graduate with years of experience tutoring hundreds of students in math. For more information, please call 469-300-1386. That is 469-300-1386. Or visit douglastutoring.com with 2 S's.
Welcome back to the Mindset Transformation Radio Show and Podcast. I am speaking today to Mr. Mike Wolf. Mike is a real estate investor who has been in real estate investment business for over 28 years. In our first segment, he told us of his journey to becoming living a passive lifestyle, passive income, because he has paid the dues and now has his business on automatic. So, as we get into the second half of our show, let me ask you, Mike. We talked a little bit of this in our first segment, but what would you say are some of the biggest myths in real estate investment?
Well, I think a lot of them are perpetuated by the media. So we see all these shows about flipping this and flipping that, and there's nothing wrong with flipping. I've done it myself. You can make a good living doing it, but it's a job, and there's a lot of work. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. There's a lot of ways, mines and pitfalls out there when you do it. So, but the biggest thing is that people that get into that. I have a good friend of mine. He flips dozens of homes a year. He's very, very successful at it. But the big difference is when I go visit him, basically I have to go in his car. If I want to have a conversation with him, I got to go in his car while he drives around the city looking at, like, he's been in the business for years and he's still running around. He actually doesn't mind it. He's still trading his time for money. So to me, the biggest myth is that real estate can create passive income. It can also become something that takes up a lot of your time. You might be trading your 8-hour-a-day job for, in my case, it was a 15-hour-a-day job. And, it's fun. It's exciting because you're out there and you're meeting people. But sometimes when you spend so many hours working on your business, you kind of forget about things such as your health, such as your family, and other things start to fall apart. And so for me, one of the things that I learned is I actually prefer, instead of working harder, I'd rather work smarter. Put teams in place. So if you are going to be a flipper, try and build a team around it. Get people that do most of the work for you, so you're not running around. But that's really the biggest one, is that a lot of people get into real estate because they think it's going to change their lifestyle, and they actually end up with sometimes a worse lifestyle, because it's something you take home with you every day. It doesn't stop. You can't just say, I'm going to work 9 to 5 today on my real estate. Well, guess what? At 6 o'clock while you're having dinner with your family, things are still going to go wrong, and there's still going to be issues. So to me, it's all about, how do I do this smarter? How do I get teams to handle all the work? How do I make it so my money's working for me instead of me trading my time for money? And that's really the biggest one. The other ones are things such as, everybody thinks that they're going to get rich quick. They take some course, they go to some seminar, and then they're going to go the next day and become a millionaire. This is an industry where it's all about relationships. It's all about, getting more of those resources we talked about earlier, getting better people on your teams. There's a lot of trial and error with it, and it's not something that just falls into place really, really smoothly for most people just because they took some course. So, and then the other myth, another really big myth is that, people don't think, I don't have a lot of money, so I can't get started. Well, money is one of those resources that there's a ton of people with money out there. So imagine that you have a ton of time on your hands, and you're going door to door looking for deals, and you find a deal, just as an example, it's $100,000 under market value. The person's desperate to sell, it's $100,000 under market value. Well, if you were to call me and say, hey, Mike, I've got this property, it's $100K under market value. I have no cash. Do you want to put up the cash, and I'll help you do the deal? Will you make $50,000? Of course, I'm going to say yes to that. So getting money isn't nearly as tough as you think. It doesn't have to come from a bank. When you have a good deal, then the money will follow. If you have lots of money, the deal will follow. So the resources that you lack usually will, if you spend the time to network and find these people that have the things that you need, they're more than happy to work with you, because you're bringing something to the table that they don't have. And so, as you mentioned earlier, it's about bringing value to the marketplace. So, so don't think just because you don't have any money that you can't do a deal. Or conversely, if you think, hey, I've got all this money but I have no time and I don't know what I'm doing, there's people out there that know what they're doing and they have access to deals. They need your money. So there's a lot of different ways to get deals done, but it's really about filling in those gaps and having the right people with the right resources to make these deals come together.
Yeah, well, that's pretty good. I mean, I like the fact that most of the people that are listening is probably going to be on the other side, where they have no money. They're not.
Yeah, well, it makes you feel any better.
A lot of money. And
well, it makes you feel any better. When I did my first deal, like I said, I had a whole bunch of student loan debt, and we got a little bit creative, and so the banks back in those days, I don't know if it's still the same because I don't deal with banks anymore, but the banks wanted to see my down payment in my bank account for 90 days. Well, I had good credit. I didn't have any money, but I got a line of credit, cut myself a check, put it in the bank, made payments on it, of course. And then after 90 days, I could count that as my down payment. So I bought my first couple of properties using none of my own money. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't even know I wanted to be a real estate investor back then. But I had somebody smart on my team, my mortgage broker, who knew how to do this. So once again, I was using his resources. I was using his know-how to help me get through those first couple of deals. And I wouldn't be here today, 28 years later, doing what I do had I not bought those first couple of properties. So I could have easily said, I'm in debt. I got these student loans, so there's no way I could possibly do real estate. Well, if I would have had that mindset, I would probably still be at the phone company, or no offense to any lawyers that might be listening, but I think I'd be a very miserable lawyer. And, I'm glad things worked out the way they did. But, a lot of people, they sell themselves short, and they I think Henry Ford says it best: whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And it's totally true. It's all about your mindset. I love that
saying. I actually just wrote that a couple of days ago in one of my blogs. But, yeah, that's very true. So, when I took my course and started becoming, an investor, and I heard about the hard money lending team, and I will tell you that they're begging now for people to these private lenders and the hard money lenders, they're begging. I get emails every day. You ready to do a deal? We're ready. We're doing this. We're doing this. We're doing that. So the interest rate is high enough that they're pushing it. And you don't even have to have good credit or anything. And you're right.
Nope, they look at the deal.
Look at is the
That's
deal.
Right.
They look at the deal. Right. So the deal.
And a lot of people. And a lot of people, and here's something to consider because I know there's probably some newbies listening. I used to do money lending as well back in the days. And, a lot of people, if I told them the interest rate was 15%, they'd say, I'm not paying 15%. What you need to look at is what's in it for you. If you were to borrow money at 15%, what is that deal going to give you? Don't worry about what somebody else, don't worry about what somebody else is making on the deal. Worry what it's going to put in your pocket when all is said and done. So ironically, sometimes I say, okay, well, I tell you what, I won't charge you any interest. I'm going to put up all the cash, and we're going to split the equity and the profit in the deal. And for some reason, a lot of people would say yes to that without any hesitation, but they wouldn't pay the 15% interest, and they pay me a whole lot more money.
They're not true investors. They're not true investors because, again, it's your mindset.
Exactly.
Yep. It's your mindset.
So I make a lot more money, but people are more concerned with what am I making. 15%, that's like highway robbery. Yeah. Well,
and
so
now you've gone from making 15% to 50.
Exactly. That's right. So people are funny. So just always think about what's in it for you.
Yeah, it's very
true. It happens all the time.
Yeah, one of my trainers in my class that I took talk about using your credit card, and everybody would go put their back up against the wall. I don't want to pay those fees, and he did the same thing. Would you pay fees in order so that you can make money? It doesn't matter about the fees that you pay. It matters is what you can earn at the end. It's called investment capital or whatever. So
absolutely,
right. It's just a mindset. So you've got to have a different kind of a mindset.
Are you one of the millions of uninsured Americans who currently suffer from type 1 diabetes and is struggling month to month to afford your insulin because of the ongoing prices? Then ReferralRx.com is your solution. Through our free specialty insulin referral program, we can help our customers as well as pet owners save 40 to 50% off of their insulin retail. Guaranteed. So stop the struggle and visit www.referralrx.com or call us direct at 888-381-6675 to find out how we can save you thousands of dollars off of your insulin without draining your pockets like the big chain pharmacies do.
Are you looking for a tutor for next year's math class? Your wait is over. Frederick Douglass Tutoring Online Services is here to serve you. Your tutor is a college graduate with years of experience tutoring hundreds of students in math. For more information, please call 469-300-1386. That is 469-300-1386. Or visit douglasstutoring.com with 2 S's.
All right, so let's continue on with speaking to Mike. So, Mike, let me ask you this question. How do you show your potential clients that trading their time for dollars is not worth it? And specifically, what does your company do for investors around the world?
Yeah, so basically, I used to speak for a very prominent real estate investment company that did seminars at one point. And when I was there, I realized I was just a guest speaker. I didn't teach the entire weekend of education. I was just a guest speaker. And what I realized from meeting a lot of these people is most of them didn't necessarily want to be full-time real estate investors where you go out and find the deals. They didn't want to necessarily trade their time for money. They just wanted the benefits that real estate provides. And so when I ended up not speaking for that seminar company anymore because I didn't necessarily like what they were teaching, so I quit, I started to get emails from people wanting either education or they wanted to get involved in real estate, but they didn't want to do the work. And so I have an education side to my business, which I don't really focus on that much anymore because I found that most people they think that's what they want, but once they learn how much work is involved, they usually just want the result. And so I also created a turnkey real estate company. And basically this company, we go and buy properties from the banks. We buy 20, 30, 40 at a time. We buy these big packages. We inspect them. We fix them. We put good tenants in there, and then I handpick my property management team that not only manages my properties, but the same team will be managing your properties if you buy one of these. And so we've taken all the guesswork out of it. So you don't have to go and build, a team of rehabbers. You don't have to build your own property management team. You don't have to do any of that because I've already done that all for you. And these days, coincidentally, I'm doing it in Atlanta. We started off in Las Vegas a number of years ago. Then we went to Phoenix. We've done stuff in Florida. And I move from market to market. When it's a good time to get in, I get into that market. I help other people invest there without them having to do the work. And then when it's time to get out, I also call up my clients and say, listen, I'm moving my money from, in the case of Atlanta, before that I was in Phoenix. So I called up my clients and said, hey, I'm moving my money from Phoenix to Atlanta. If you want to follow suit, I've got a team set up in the next market. I can help you sell your existing property. I can help you expand your portfolio, get more properties without having to put more money out there. And so that's basically what we do in a nutshell. So you're not going to be trading your time for money. You're not going to have to build a team. You're not going to have to find the right properties. So just to let you know, in these packages of properties that we get from the banks, at least half of them are crap. There's things that I wouldn't sell to anybody else. I wouldn't put it in my portfolio, so I wouldn't sell it to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And so we sell those off to hedge funds, and they buy our our leftovers. So we only fix up the good properties in the right neighborhoods, in the right market. And the most significant thing is I don't live in Atlanta. I'm not buying there for some emotional reason or because I like to go on holidays there. If I did that, you'd all be buying Hawaiian properties and Costa Rican properties and Bali properties. I buy where it makes the most sense, where the returns are best. And then when it's time to get out of that market, I help you exit, make a profit, and then, in the case of the people that move their money from Phoenix to Atlanta, for every property they sold in Phoenix, they can afford to buy 2 in Atlanta. And so people literally can double the size of their portfolio. Once again, you don't have to keep your eye on the market. You don't have to figure out where the right neighborhoods are. You don't have to build a team. You don't have to collect rent, and you're certainly not going to get calls at 2 in the morning from tenants with leaky toilets. And so I've basically taken all the things that I've learned over the years in places where I've screwed up, and we've put teams and systems in place to fix them, to make sure we get the right tenants in place, to make sure we're getting the right homes, the right neighborhoods. So it takes all the guesswork out of it, so you don't have to be a full-time investor. You can be an armchair investor. You can go enjoy your spare time and travel and spend time with your family and volunteer. Whatever it is that lights you up, you can do that because we've done all the work for you.
All right, but I still don't get it. So you buy these 20 to 40 properties, you sell some of them to hedge funds, you fix up the good ones, and then you sell them, but then you still manage them. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So we basically sell them to other investors. I've got a very big portfolio of properties already for myself. Those ones that are not for sale, I've collected them over the last 28 years. Okay. But when I quit speaking for the seminar company, I'd have people calling me up all the time saying, well, we want to do this, we want to invest. But how do we even get into that market? Because I speak to people all over North America, and quite often, if you're in a market like right now, for example, today I'm in Los Angeles, and I will never buy any investment properties in California ever because number one thing I look at is how landlord friendly is it. And if you get a bad tenant here, they can live in your home for a year, 18 months without making a single payment. And if they know how to work the court system, they can stay in your home without making a single payment. You can't get rid of them. So you can't run a business where you've got no revenue coming in. So there's a whole bunch of people in California that would love to invest in real estate, but how would somebody from California invest in real estate in a place like Atlanta without a team, without living there, without eyes on the ground? And so I started to get emails from people when I quit the seminars saying, well, we want to invest, but we can't invest in our own backyard. So that's why I started to create this, because if I'm going to buy properties for myself, I get better deals when I buy bigger packages of properties anyway. And so that's how this all came about.
I like it. I'm even interested because I know Atlanta is very cheap. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Atlanta's a bargain.
All right. Well, yes, I need to come on one of your, which is my next question. I need to come on your webinar. So what do you do exactly in your webinar? Tell me, what do you do on your webinar?
So in my webinar, I basically explain to people the things, one that I learned over 28 years, and what sets us apart, from most other turnkey operators. So one example is, every one of our properties, before a tenant moves in, they're signing 2 contracts. One of them is a 3-year lease. Nobody's moving in on a 1-year lease. Nobody's moving in with a 6-month lease. They get a 3-year lease. And the reason they'll sign a 3-year lease is we also give them an option to purchase. So if you were to buy a property from me for $100,000, you'd have a tenant in there that probably has an option somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000 3 years from now. So number one, the reason we do that, one, we attract really good tenants that way, because these people quite often are people that used to be homeowners. They lost their home during the recession, and they want to get back into home ownership. Well, somebody who's owned a home before, they're going to make a much better tenant than somebody who's been a tenant all their life. There's people that are professional tenants that know how to work the system. So that's that's one of the things that we do. But we have a lot of, I pretty much make every mistake in the book at some point in my career. And every time I make a mistake, I always think, well, how do we fix it? So one of the biggest challenges when you own real estate, when you're buying and holding, is vacancy. Every time a home goes vacant, well, guess what? You're probably repainting. You might be changing carpets. You're definitely cleaning at the very least, and that's expensive. And then, of course, you have no rent coming in for a month or two. So, this program really reduces the vacancy rates, because they're doing the 3-year leases. And 2, they've got skin in the game. They're putting a deposit it's not even a deposit. It's actually called option consideration that the investor gets to keep. And if these people don't stay for 3 years, they don't get it back. When they move out, they don't get that money back. It only gets applied towards purchase price if they buy it. So they've got skin in the game. And, of course, they're going to take better care of a home. If you're planning on buying it, you're going to take much better care of it than you would a typical tenant would. And so it reduces the vacancy rate, reduces the repair bills, and it creates a win-win where we're helping somebody get back into home ownership. The investor wins, I win, the tenant wins, and that's how you should do your business every day. We talk about adding value. To me, it's about adding value to everybody involved in a transaction, from if you're going to be a real estate investor, from yourself to your teams, to your customers. If everybody walks away from a deal happy and they want to keep doing business together, that's a successful transaction. And so that's just one of many, many things that I talk about in that webinar. And even if you're not planning on buying a turnkey property, if you're planning on going out there and doing your own thing, I have a lot of tips on how to choose better tenants, how to choose better homes, how to have a better, less stressful experience, how did I build my teams. It covers a lot of different topics that will be definitely of interest to most investors.
Nice. All right. So how do we sign up?
Well, I don't know if you can put a link underneath this, which would make it really easy. Otherwise, people can email me. I don't have actually a webpage specifically for that, but they can email me at mike@mikewolfmastery.com, mike@mikewolfmastery.com. And wolf is just like the animal, WOLF. So, and I will send that to you.
All right. Well, I'm going to put this on a blog, so you can just email me the link, and I'll put it on my blog and on this episode, and then they can just link to that. So, of course, my blog is blog.myhelps.us. So there's going to be lots of good information on my blog for this segment. So yeah, you guys can, and then there's so the link is a link to the registration page for the the webinar.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah. So basically, you'll just you just click the link and you'll have instant access to it. So it's not one of those things where you got to wait like 3 days or.
Oh, I see. Awesome. Oh, that's great.
It's
okay.
To replace, you can watch it. You can watch it right away. So make it really easy for you.
Okay, so that's great. And then if you guys want to, contact Mike after that for any of the things that he's talked about on this show, and then you can contact him at Mike@MikeWolfMaster.
Yeah, Mastery, MASTERY, MikeWolfMastery.com.
Right. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, as we wrap up our show, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the Mindset Transformation Radio Show and Podcast. Remember to visit my blog at blog.myhelps.us, and that's www.blog.myhelps.us. So today we're going to have links to download my free ebook, How to Mind Your Own Business While Working Your Day Job. We are going to have links on there for more information on the 1 Fort Myers luxury condos, You're going to have now a link on there to go to Mike's webinar, and he's going to teach you some of the tricks and trade of the job, and maybe have him help you to become an investor. Because obviously, if he's buying the properties in bulk, and he's getting good tenants, and he's got a great team, might want to join him. I'm leaning towards that too. So when I'm going to definitely go on your webinar, Mike. So that's awesome.
Yeah, well, it just happens to be in your backyard, so that's just a coincidence.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Because I had no idea. I had no idea you're from Atlanta when we first started speaking, so it works out pretty cool.
Well, I'm actually, I know, right? I'm not from Atlanta, but the show airs locally in Atlanta. So it's actually perfect. Yeah. I'm in Florida.
Well, there you go.
But it's still my backyard, 8-hour drive.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah,
10-minute flight, you go up and they give you water and you land.
So what was that?
That's perfect. Oh, I said it's like a 10-minute flight. You just go up in the air, they give you water and you land. So
it's true.
Easy.
It's true. Yes. All right. So listen, I want to thank Mike for being an awesome, wonderful guest on the show. So thank you, Mike. Looking forward to, we had so much that we wanted to talk about today. We couldn't get to all of it. You've got some great skill sets, and you add great value. I'm glad I started off with that. And so maybe we can have you back on the show another time to, getting some details of some of the things that you talk about on your webinar. So
I would love that.
Right. Awesome. Okay. So until next time, guys, tune in to the same time next week. Remember to subscribe to the podcast so that when you can't tune in at 5 o'clock on Wednesdays, that you can have the show, on your phones. So thanks again for tuning in, and remember to live your best life now. Thanks again, Mike. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.